She was an outdoor girl who loved dancing with her dad, until one day in 2021 when the dancing suddenly stopped. People say her parents have had 8 children taken away by Child Protective Services, and she was another casualty of terrible parenting. Or they say maybe her parents sold her off for drugs to the local crime syndicate, the Cornbread Mafia. There's almost no evidence and almost too many theories to count. This is the story of Summer Wells, the 5-year-old who disappeared out the basement door. Hi friends, I'm Katie, and this is Katie Does Crime. Thank you for joining me for the first time if you're new here, and hello to the usual rapscallions and reprobates. Please consider subscribing or joining me on Patreon if you'd like to hear more true crime stories. You know, I try not to cover the cases that have been covered a million times, but I also sometimes can't help but be interested in the same little blonde girls everyone else is, so please forgive me. I was wondering the other day if there's any news in the case of Summer Wells, and thought that maybe if I'm wondering, you're wondering too. And I hope it's a new case for some of you out there. 5-year-old Summer Moon Utah Wells lived with her family in Beech Creek, Tennessee, a little community with one grocery store about 2 hours southwest of Nashville. Summer, her mom Candace, her dad Don, and her 3 older brothers all lived in the main house, high up on a hill surrounded by dense trees. Her grandma, Candy, lived in a camper about 20 feet away on the 11-acre property. Don is originally from Utah, Candace is from Wisconsin, and they met in Arkansas where they had their first son. They came to Tennessee to take care of Don's mom, had their other children, and inherited the house when Don's mom died. Don and Candace called Summer a tomboy, the kind of girl who wanted to shave her head because her brothers had. Pictures always show her running or fishing, but she was also the type of girl who loved pretending to be a princess from Frozen and dancing with her dad. She loved playing outside, but always answered when her mom called. But then one day in June 2021, she simply didn't answer. In the words of her mom from the family's website, here's what happened. We come home, and then me and my mom, the boys were in watching YouTube like they always do. My mom says, let's rearrange and plant the flowers. She goes, well, we know the boys aren't going to help us. I know Summer will. So I yelled for Summer. She was in the house with the boys. She comes out and she was planting flowers with us. The flowers were put in planters next to Grandma Candy's camper, with Summer handling some of the tasks. She put all of the rocks on top, put Chaste in there. She did all of the rocks herself. We went into Grandmother's after we were done. She asked Grandma for a piece of candy. Grandma gave her a piece of candy. She told me she wanted to go back over with her brothers, so I literally walked her halfway between the camper and the house. I watched her go in the door, and I could see her brothers at the kitchen table. When she went in, I walked over and yelled at the boys. I said, watch Summer, I'll be right back. I've got to fix Mom's knee brace. I was standing right there at the camper. I was over there fixing it. Literally, you can see my house from the camper door. She did not walk back out that front door. So I went down there and I searched. I looked everywhere I could. Then I went through the house and I kept calling for her, yelling for her, everything. I came out here yelling for her, everything else, and she was nowhere. So I called Don because I was freaking out. I said, I can't find Summer. Get home now. He was like, call 911. So I dropped my phone because I had to run over and get Mom's phone and dial 911 because her AT&T phone is the only one that works out here to call 911. So I called them and I told them what's going on. Before the cops even came out, I went down and told my neighbors, Summer is missing. Will you help me look? Just in case she did wander off. But I knew in the back of my mind, she's never wandered off. She never went nowhere without me. She'll ask me to do something before she even goes and does it. And she's scared to go in the woods herself because we've told her time and time again because of the bears and snakes. I sent the older boys down through the creek. If they've got a walkie-talkie and their buck knife, they can go down through there. I sent them all searching, and I went out in my mom's truck and went all the way down by the church, and then went all the way down the other way, and I didn't see nobody even out and about. Then I went all the way back in the holler as far as the truck can go, and I didn't see nothing back in there either. When I was coming back up out of the holler, the cops were coming up my driveway, so I just followed them up in here. I don't recall if Don was here before the police got here or if he was here at the same time they showed up. We searched everywhere we could possibly search. They were out here for 3 or 4 days straight, searching 5,000 square acres. They searched all this mountain terrain all the way down through here. They smile to put on a good show, but other than that, I know they're really upset. They ask me every day, is Summer coming home today? I can't answer that. I don't know. I find myself sitting out here until midnight or 1 o'clock at night, just hoping maybe that whoever took her, or whatever happened, she'll come wandering back up the driveway to us. This was on June 15th, 2021. Earlier that day, Candace, Summer, and a 15-year-old friend of the family went to the hospital because Grandma Candy's leg was bothering her. Candy got a shot, and they all went to a local drugstore to get a prescription filled for her. There was a bit of a wait, so Candace bought a vape pen and a twisted tea, which is a 5% alcohol hard tea drink. According to the underage boy, she shared those with him. While they waited, they went to a nearby state park so Summer could swim. The boy said Summer went underwater for several seconds, and he went in to make sure she was okay. He said she seemed fine and was just laughing about it afterward as they went to a CBD and THC store. Then they finally picked up the prescription and dropped the boy off and went home. Candace said she doesn't really recall the exact timing of everything that day because time gets away from you when you're trying to enjoy yourself. But she says it was all of 2 minutes between walking Summer over to their house to be with her brothers and coming back from helping Candy. Summer's brothers said she'd gone to her bedroom in the basement to play with her toys, but when Candace called for her, there was no answer. Summer was reported missing at about 6:30 p.m., and searchers immediately got to work. When they weren't able to find anything locally, an Amber Alert was issued statewide the next day. Crews with dogs and drones continued searching the area for days. The sheriff said the terrain was rough and the cell phone service was spotty, and on top of that, there was no description of a vehicle or a suspect to work from. There was really no proof Summer had been abducted. There was also no proof she had wandered into the woods. There was nothing. Authorities asked that locals check their barns and outbuildings to see if she may be hiding nearby. Police dogs followed her scent from the basement door of the house to the road, where they lost it. Here's a sped-up version of the video Summer's dad made to show where the dogs tracked her from the door through the woods to the road.
Built generator, and the road and everything, back door. So, yeah. There's a creek down there. See the road in the distance. Definitely tell us mostly dogs that's been through here. There's the road. Yeah. And earlier today, they said there was, when they come up here, somebody was on our property and run off. I can't confirm that, but that's what they were saying. I don't know though. Yeah. So that quick, right to the road. There's our mailbox. And this is where the search dogs trail ended. That's where the trail goes up through there. That's about it. And then, of course, somebody said they spotted a truck parked here somewhere. We don't know. I didn't see it. That's just what somebody said. But so hopefully that helps y'all. Thank you so much.
By the time Summer had been missing for 10 days, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation was calling the case outside of the norm. Usually they would have some idea of a suspect or a motive within a few days, but that wasn't the case here. Hundreds of tips had come in, but none of them were fruitful. They'd conducted interviews with people spotted driving in the area, but it had led them nowhere. Summer's parents said they believed Summer had been abducted from the basement where she and they slept. They said the door to the outside was sometimes unlocked. Even though they tried to stress to the boys to be sure to lock it, boys will be boys, so anyone could have gotten in. But Summer's dad, Don, said, "We do have good people in this area. We found out since this all happened. I got some real good neighbors and good folks everywhere." But not everyone was sure Don himself was good people. He'd been arrested on assault and weapons charges the year before. In October 2020, he came home drunk to find another man at the house, and he believed Candace was cheating on him. An argument ensued, and Don pushed her to the ground. When the police responded, they found Don in his truck with a pistol in the glove box. The next day, Candace filed an order of protection against him, saying he was physically and mentally abusive and she was scared for herself and the kids. But 4 days later, she asked for the charges against him to be dismissed. Don pleaded guilty to possession of a handgun while under the influence, and the other charges were dropped. This wasn't his first run-in with the law, though. He also faced drugs, aggravated assault, and burglary charges, among others, in the past. But now, in the wake of Summer's disappearance, he said the past is where his criminal history had been left. Reporters couldn't help but keep finding skeletons in the family's closet, though. This wasn't actually the first time someone in the family had disappeared. Summer's aunt had left her home in Wisconsin in August 2009, planning to go about 5 miles away. 5 days later, her vehicle was actually found 30 miles away in a semi-truck tractor-trailer parking lot. Summer's mom, Candace, said she was between Arkansas and Tennessee when her sister went missing and doesn't know what happened at all. Summer's aunt has never been located, but authorities don't think the two cases have anything to do with each other. A neighbor interviewed by WJHL News said that Candace was devastated by Summer's disappearance and didn't want to leave the house. She was worried Summer would wander back home and no one would be there for her. But not everyone believed it. From the very beginning, the internet thought the parents were definitely in on it. People picked up on the fact that Summer's parents quickly referred to her in the past tense, like she was a tomboy. She loved to play outside.
She loved to be outside all the time. That was her, unfortunately, her downfall. 'Cause a lot of times the boys would be inside and we'd be like, "Where's Summer? Why'd you leave her out there alone? Go get Summer now." And that's happened over and over again.
But Summer's mom said it was just a simple mistake, that sometimes they lose hope and start to think in the past tense. She said Summer was their angel, their blessing, what made their world go around. Don said that the attacks on the family and the misinformation only added to the family's pain, including for Summer's brothers. The family was part of a Seventh-day Adventist church that observed the Sabbath, and even Summer's Sabbath school teacher wasn't safe from people tearing apart her every word for a clue. People were threatening everyone involved with the family with violence. And then in July 2021, Summer's brothers were removed from their home by Child Protective Services. Apparently, this wasn't the first time CPS had contact with the family. Just before Summer disappeared, someone had reported Don and Candace for giving the kids loaded guns to play with. Now, with Don hearing people say he'd sold Summer for drugs, he flipped out and started drinking and quote-unquote everything else. CPS advised Don that the boys should be away from all of the chaos, and Don agreed. He thought the kids would return when things cooled down, but they never did cool down. Later that year in October, Don was arrested for driving under the influence when he ran off the road while trying to make a turn. He told the judge in the case that he wasn't sure how he could pay the court expenses and child support for his sons. But it's sort of like, whose fault is that? That November, the Hawkins County Sheriff said the TBI and the FBI continued to help the local detective assigned to the case, and that daily calls were still coming in about Summer. But nothing exactly pointed to abduction still, and no search had yielded any clues. The sheriff said, "I assure you, we've done everything, when we were up there on that scene, everything humanly possible to do." Later in November, a woman who lived on the hill parallel to the one the Wells family lived on came forward and said she and her kids heard a scream the day Summer went missing. They first saw a vehicle go up the Wells driveway, and she says something about it struck her as wrong. Then they heard a vehicle door slam and an almost animalistic scream that stopped them cold. It would have been about an hour and a half before Summer disappeared. The sheriff doesn't believe the scream was related to the case, which is kind of funny to me. Like, if there was a scream, how could it not be related to the case? But maybe he doesn't believe there was a scream at all. Summer's parents appeared on the Dr. Phil talk show at the end of the month, and at one point when the local organized crime group, the Cornbread Mafia, was mentioned, Candace took off her microphone and left the set in a flurry of emotional distress. So that really made people wonder, was Summer taken to pay off some sort of debt to them? Candace later explained that a little girl had been found south of Tennessee who matched Summer's description, but just before the taping of the show, they'd found out that it wasn't Summer, and it was like losing her all over again. So when Dr. Phil's deception and body language experts began questioning her, making her relive the day Summer disappeared, it was too much. For what it's worth, Dr. Phil and his so-called experts said they didn't believe Summer's parents had anything to do with harming her. Over the winter, the search for Summer renewed now that the leaves were off many of the trees, and 4 self-proclaimed social media sleuths from 4 different platforms arrived in town to, attempt to do more in 1 week than the authorities had been able to do in 6 months. I'm half kidding here because, of course, there are some famous instances of social media investigations actually doing incredible things, and I do believe these people were trying to help. They said law enforcement are only human, and they just wanted to see if they could uncover any mistakes or get locals to open up to them in a way they might not to someone with a badge. But Summer's parents filed a trespassing complaint against them when they showed up to make a video of the Wells property. Then, in January 2022, it was protesters who showed up at the Wells home and at a construction site where Dawn and Candace were working. Maybe it was the stress of this that led Dawn to assault Candace later that month. Candace reported Dawn again, this time for hitting her, grabbing her by the throat, and pushing her against a wall. He would soon be out of the house, though. In February 2022, he was sentenced to almost a year in jail for his DUI charge. He would eventually be released in October 2022 after writing several letters to Summer and the people he referred to as her kidnappers. One of them says, "You have also broke the hearts of her father and mother and brothers, and in the midst of all the commotion ruined our lives. You see, the public blames us." I don't know, is it weird that he made his daughter's disappearance about himself? Or does anyone who loses a child make it about themselves? Authorities launched another search of the Wells property later in February 2022, although there was no particular information that led to the new investigation. Still, in the following days, the sheriff announced that the family had attorneys and were no longer cooperating. Candace's mom fought back, saying it wasn't true and they were always willing to talk if it meant helping to find Summer. It turns out that the sheriff meant that lawyers had been appointed to help Dawn and Candace get their 3 boys back after CPS removed them from the Wells home in July 2021. A detective said they had been appointed for this other reason, but that their work had bled over into Summer's case. Meanwhile, the Wells said the lawyer wasn't helping at all and wouldn't return their calls. They said the Department of Children's Services was keeping them from seeing or even talking to their boys. They said if Summer was ever found, they feared she may not be returned to them. As far as anyone knows, Summer's brothers, Josie, Wyatt, and Waylon, have been placed with foster families and remain there still today. In June 2023, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation released a new photo of how Summer may have looked after 2 years of being missing. She would have been 7 years old. They said, though we have no new details to share publicly, rest assured, we're continuing to chase every lead in order to find Summer. Don had been working in construction in Arkansas because no one in Tennessee wanted to hire him after the job site protest. He said he thought his sons were probably scared of their old house since Summer disappeared, and he hoped to get them back and move everyone to Arkansas. And that's really where we are now today. Summer Wells would have turned 8 years old on February 4th, 2024. Summer's body has never been found, and neither her parents nor anyone else has ever been charged with her abduction nor murder. But of course, the internet has theories about what happened. People say Dawn and Candace were involved with shady characters who could have taken and trafficked Summer. They say Dawn was abusing her, that Candace admits Summer slept in their bed, and that Dawn slept naked, so that's automatically proof of abuse. Or that Dawn used to shower with Summer, and that's automatically proof of abuse. From what I could find online from parenting experts, it's fine to shower with your children, even children of the opposite gender, until they're able to bathe themselves as long as neither person feels uncomfortable. Summer was about at the age where she could start to bathe herself, but she certainly wasn't so old that it should immediately raise any red flags. But here's the thing. Don's stepsister has said that he abused her starting when she was only 5 years old and he was 12. Her mom married Don's dad, and the games young Don subjected her to allegedly started soon after they all moved into a new house together. She says he would tell her she couldn't tell anyone he was touching her, or everyone in the family would die. She would wear several pairs of pants to bed and string up soda cans across her door in the hope that it would wake up other people in the house and stop him, but either no one noticed or no one wanted to admit it. She claims he once did the same thing to a friend of hers who was sleeping over. This stepsister finally had enough around the age of 12 and told her parents, but Don's dad downplayed the situation and said he would divorce her mom if they pressed charges. All her mom could do at the time was apologize to her. She says Don has confessed to their dad about this abuse, but claims that they had a consensual relationship. In fact, he says she instigated it at the age of 5. And that's really just the tip of the iceberg. Don also allegedly abused another stepsister along with 2 other boys, but when she made a statement to the police, Don's dad made her drop the charges. Don would allegedly go on to make his stepniece sit on his lap so he could touch her. And his stepsister says there are several other victims who haven't come forward yet. The stepsister says she reported all of this to the police the second day Summer was missing. Now, charges related to this have never been brought against Don, but his grown son is a convicted offender. This man pleaded guilty in 2007 to indecency with a child. Don says his son was 19 at the time, and the child was his girlfriend who was 18 months younger. But even if you discount this arrest, there's also evidence that Grandma Candy's brother, Warren, was committed to an institution after pleading no contest to 8 counts of incest in 1994. This seems to be a family with generational problems of abuse. Some people say the Wells outsmarted the police, and other people say they weren't bright enough to outsmart anyone. If something happened to Summer and she died accidentally, it doesn't seem like these parents would be able to mastermind a cover-up. But those woods around their house sure are dark and dense. There's a theory that Summer drowned in the state park that day while they waited for Candy's prescription, and that's why she appears limp in a photo from the backseat of the truck later, not because she was asleep. But it seems weird to me that someone would take a photo of her body if they were trying to cover up a drowning. And the 15-year-old boy who was with them doesn't seem like he was holding anything back in his later interview. Some have suggested that Summer's aunt purposely disappeared but knew about the abuse and came to get Summer. But Summer was born long after the aunt went missing, and why would this aunt leave the boys behind? People also say Candace was jealous of the relationship Don and Summer had. He once said in an interview, "Me and her were way closer than her and Candace. She was all about me." So people think maybe Candace wanted to get rid of the competition. A guy on YouTube said he was offered Summer's toys, like Candace was giving them away. And commenters say that means she's unfeeling or that she needed to get rid of the reminder of what she did. Another option could be, of course, that the toys are painful to look at when you have no idea what happened to your kid. So yeah, there are a lot of theories in this case that basically has no tangible evidence. I think one of the problems people have with Don and Candace is that there seem to be a lot of inconsistencies in their interviews. Like the one story is that Summer had a shaved head because she wanted to cut her hair short like her mom and brothers. But then another version came out, one where Summer's hair was out of hand and they had to cut it off. In this version, Candace then also cut her own hair short so Summer wouldn't feel bad. Either version is fine, although one makes them look a little worse in the parenting department, but why lie? Some people think Don and Candace wanted Summer to be able to pass as a boy for when they sold her off. And in one version of Don's retelling of the day's events, he got home before law enforcement arrived, but later he said the police beat him there. And if Summer was such an outdoor child like her dad says she was, why would her mom feel the need to walk her the 20 feet from Candy's trailer to home? And if the family had several dogs on the property, how did one of them not make a noise if a kidnapper was lurking around? Another example is that when Candace made her 911 call, the dispatcher told the police that Candace had gone for a walk and came home to find Summer gone. Candace said she's not sure why anyone would say that. She never goes on walks in the area because of the bears and snakes. That 911 call has never been released due to the ongoing investigation. And it partly feels like it doesn't matter. Maybe the dispatcher just got it wrong, and who cares if she was walking or not? But it partly feels like it's just another inconsistency when all eyes are already on these parents. I think part of the judgment comes from the poverty or, just the sort of different situation that the Wells family was living in. News Nation interviewed a retired investigator who was given a tour of the house by Candace. And in his video, she shows him how Summer's room was under a counter in the kitchen, down some stairs that you have to crawl down backward in an unfinished area in a messy house.
So I want to show some of this video for folks at home, and I want us to walk through exactly what you saw inside this home.
So this is Candace showing me essentially where the boys were sitting. They were sitting right there at that table, looking at that TV, playing video games. Summer went down into the basement. She's pointing to this table here that has basically a crawl space into it. And down into that crawl space goes down into the parents' and Summer's room. So I asked her if she would take me down there. She did. And so we crawl through there.
So now can I stop you real quick, Chris? Because this is the only way to get to Summer's and the parents' room is through this crawl space.
Right. This is the way she said Summer went into that basement.
Why do they have it set up like that?
That is a great question. I don't have that answer.
Okay. Continue.
So we get down there, and of course, this is Summer's room here that you're seeing. All of the items in the back corner belong to Summer. There is a mattress on the floor, the 2 bunk beds. The windows are secured with reflective type of materials. And so you can tell this is, it's pretty striking pretty quickly for a 5-year-old to be in this environment.
I get that it seems a little shocking for a child to be staying in what seems like a hole in the ground, but that's also apparently where Don and Candace slept. The news anchor says, "Why do they have it set up like that?" And the man says it's pretty striking for a 5-year-old to be in this environment. But I don't know, being from a backwoods area myself, this house doesn't seem so out of the ordinary for people on a hill in the middle of nowhere, Tennessee. The family inherited the home from Don's mom and have been working on it since. In November of 2021, they posted a video showing some of the new construction, including proper stairs to the basement. I imagine they always wanted this kind of staircase because who would choose to crawl backward down to their bedroom? But they were probably shamed into getting it done once the video of their house was released to so much backlash. Having a dirty house is only going to add fuel to the fire when people are already saying that you have a drug problem and let your daughter wander off while you are high. And I'm definitely not letting Summer's parents off the hook here. But I think one of the huge problems in this case is that so much of the news is coming from YouTubers with an interest in pulling in views without so much regard for the truth. So many of the videos you see are captioned with things like, "You're not gonna wanna miss this." And like, perhaps we could be a little less sensational when a little girl is missing? It makes researching the case really difficult because the legitimate print journalists aren't talking about Candace giving alcohol to a 15-year-old the day Summer disappeared or Don trying to sell his son from a different marriage for drugs. And I mean, good, but also Reddit's going to talk about those things either way, and it just leads to an echo chamber of rumors and misinformation. I will say that if Don and Candace didn't have anything to do with Summer's disappearance, I feel bad for them. They're some of the most hated people on the internet. And Don has said that seeing people talk about him on YouTube made him lose control, which led to his drinking and driving. Yeah, people saying mean things about you is no excuse for reckless behavior, but it would wear you down to be accused day after day if you're actually innocent. At one point, he wrote on his blog, "This pain won't go away." For what it's worth, a detective on the case says there's a very real possibility that Summer just wandered off. He said the wandering away or sneaking off to go play or whatever she may have done, that is a viable option. People are probably tired of hearing this. All possibilities are on the table. We are not completely eliminating the abduction idea, but there is nothing to lead us to believe that we need to focus on that alone. She was like 3 foot and 40 pounds. She's lower to the ground, smaller body, a lot more flexible. So that's how she could have accidentally fallen into a hole in the woods or gotten caught in some thick brush without leaving a trace. And of course, there's also the police dog that lost her scent at the road. Maybe that means she was picked up. Basically, the only lead at this point that hasn't been exhausted is the red pickup truck. A 1998 to 2000 red or maroon Toyota Tacoma with a ladder rack and white buckets in the back was seen driving in the area on the day of the disappearance, and the authorities would like to talk to the owner. One of those YouTubers I mentioned claimed that the truck was located, but it never was. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation is still actively working this angle and the case in general to this day.
When I see the picture of Summer Wells, I see my daughter. And I can tell you that if my daughter was missing, I would sure hope that somebody was looking for her every day. My name is Josh Melton. I'm the Assistant Director of the Criminal Investigation Division for the Tennessee Bureau of Investigations. We don't have the evidence in this case to know for sure whether or not Summer was abducted or whether or not she walked away from her home and became lost. It's really important to us to not focus all of our efforts on just one of those two. Many people have speculated what they think has happened in this case. The difficult part of the speculation is that if we as investigators speculate and focus our efforts in one direction, we're making a huge mistake. We have to make sure that we're being completely comprehensive as we investigate. We continue to focus on ground search efforts. We continue to focus on interviews of those who may have information about vehicles that have traveled through the area or technology that could have been used that may give us an investigative lead. All stones are being turned over. We have some of our most talented agents assigned to this case. We have brought in subject matter experts within TBI from across the state to assist in this investigation. We have thrown everything that we know to throw at this case, and we haven't had the answers that we need yet. We know we'll get them, but we don't have them today. Children are our top priority at TBI. They are the most vulnerable population that we have. They're our most precious things in our world. Our commitment to the public is that we're not going to allow this case to sit on a shelf. We are committed to bringing Summer home, and we will keep working on this case until she is home.
I know it doesn't seem extremely likely at this point, but I do hope there's some closure in this case someday. I try not to lose hope. If you know anything about Summer's disappearance, please call 1-800-TBI-FIND or email tips@tbi.tn.gov to connect with them. And as always, please let me know what you think about this case in the comments. Thank you for tuning in today. I'm just a true crime fan like you are, and I really appreciate you taking a chance on me. Please like and subscribe to my channel if you liked spending this time together. I would be so appreciative. Until next time, I'm Katie, and this has been Katie Does Crime.